I was eldest of three, so myself, my middle sister Catherine, and my youngest sister Gillian. My sister Gillian rang me to say that Catherine had collapsed when she'd woke up that day. She was like, "You've got to get the next flight, whatever it costs." This doesn't happen to us. She's going to be okay. When I landed, my phone rang to say that she's not coming back. We managed to get the kids down into bed and I just lay waiting. And then at 3 o'clock in the morning, the phone to say that she'd gone. I used to never think about or worry about death. You know, that just didn't enter my mind that anybody would die. And I really think there's a life before that and there's the life after, and it's significantly different.
This story is not to trigger anyone in any way, shape or form.
No.
I think what happened next was the pinnacle point of your whole life.
The way I look after myself now is better. I've had to, it's a real wake-up call around the way you're living your life and who you're spending time with and what you're doing. Now this realization tomorrow isn't promised. All right, I now use that in a positive way. I don't think, oh my God, tomorrow's not promised, and panic about it. So the first thing I did was resign. I often struggle to sort of have a cry or whatever. You know, it was hard to let those emotions go. But when I went out for a run on my own, I'd run off out somewhere and then just burst out into tears.
So tell me what you've recently done. Tell everyone what you've recently done, because you're obviously kind of, I don't know, it's amazing what you did, but you've not shared it with us.
I am Jenny, and I am based up in Aberdeenshire, and I am a passionate runner. I'm a mother to a son called Charlie, and to our little doggy called Maxie. And yeah, I think that's me.
I'm interested to know though, there was a corporate woman there before, and now obviously you've changed direction. So before we go into that,
Yes.
what I'd like to understand is,
Yeah.
like, what was Jenny like growing up? Take me right back to where it all began.
It's so interesting because I was reflecting, and my memory of my really young years is quite sketchy, and I suppose maybe that's quite normal once you're 53. And you know, we've got a very loving family, and you know, a very hard-working family actually. You know, Dad, when I was born, was a dairy farmer. At the time, the farm was a dairy farm. So that was, he was out at 3 a.m. to milk cows. He was out again in the afternoon to milk cows. He was always on the go. And my mum was a teacher at that time as well. So not only was she your very traditional farmer's wife, what you would expect, you know, always making sure that there was breakfast on the table, lunch on the table, dinner on the table. She also held down a teaching job as well. I was eldest of three, so myself, my middle sister Catherine, and my youngest sister Gillian, and we were tomboys. You know, we were always out and about on the farm, helping probably in you know, inverted commas. I'm sure Dad didn't see us being overly helpful, but you know, getting out and about. Catherine sadly passed away suddenly in December 2020. She had a brain aneurysm. So at that time I was living in London and she was living here with her family, and she and I used to have a Sunday call, sort of every Sunday morning, 2 hours, put the worlds to right. At that time, I was living in London. That was when I went through my houseboat era, and I would sit in the wheelhouse and we would just put the world to rights, laugh, joke about, talk about anything that was bothering us. And it was really always a really important time for me, that call. Catherine was the person that if I had to question something, like if you think, should I do this? Is this the right thing? Or, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I would pick up the phone to her. I could tell her anything and everything. And she was my number one fan, but she would also be really honest as well, which was so important. So yeah, we had that call on the Sunday morning, and then in the Monday morning, which was 20th of December, I think, 2020, my sister Gillian rang me to say that Catherine had collapsed when she'd woke up that day. So it was the 21st of December. So, and she wasn't waking up. So they'd taken her into the hospital, but I needed to come home. She was like, you've got to get the next flight, whatever it costs. So yes, it was a very hard day. Obviously, it was a hard day, but it was quite confusing because part of me was like, well, this doesn't happen to us. She's going to be okay, I've never ever, I just thought she'll be fine. I just need to get on a plane and get home and she'll be fine. When I finally got home, it was about 9 o'clock at night. So I had Charlie with me, and we got to the farm, and mum and dad were in the hospital then. And they said, well, Richard, actually, when I landed, my phone rang and it was Richard, my brother in law, to say that she's not coming back. I want you to know this. There's only two people allowed into the hospital because of COVID. So what do you want to do? And I was like, it has to be mum and dad. So I went home and let mum and dad go because obviously all the kids were there. And they were unaware really of what was really happening. So we managed to get the kids down into bed and I just lay waiting. And then at 3 o'clock in the morning, the phone to say that she'd gone. Um, and the next, yeah, it was horrendous because Richard had to come home and tell the children, and it was a strange time. And that point has changed, obviously, as you would imagine, has changed my life completely. And I really think there's a life before that, and there's the life after, and it's significantly different. I would say the way I look after myself now is better. I've had to. It's a real wake up call around the way you're living your life and who you're spending time with and what you're doing. Um, I would swap it to have her back, um,
Mm.
and yeah. So it was a really hard time for
Tough
us all.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Would you mind just going back to that? This is a normal conversation I have with somebody every single week.
Hmm.
You have your routine, and then within 24 hours, that person is no longer in your life
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Take me back.
Do you know, actually, if I take you back to the 16th of December, because um, Charlie and I went and picked up a puppy, and we'd gone and picked up Maxie, our Cocker Spaniel. So he was 12 weeks old, and I when we got back to the houseboat, first people we rang was Catherine, and well, we FaceTimed Catherine and the kids to show them Maxie, and she was so chuffed that we had this puppy, and then 5 days later for her to no longer be here, when you kind of, I feel like he was sent to me to help me through, and he still helps me through. I think, and it's when you look back, and I think that's what happens when you lose someone. You start to look at the days leading up to it, and the days after, and the years after. You start looking at why things happen a certain way. So that's one of the things I reflect on is that, gosh, was he sent to me because I'm going to need him? Um,
Mm,
so, and Catherine and I, if I give you we're very similar people. and we've got a similar sense of humor and a similar approach to people. So when we would have our weekly catch up calls, it was, it was 2 hours long because we had so much in common. We'd be sharing and able to advise and support each other because we were both kind of thinking in a similar way.
Yeah.
Um, and I think for me, and actually the other thing is I used to never think about or worry about death. That just didn't enter my mind that anybody would die. So yeah, it wasn't in my mind at all. Whereas now it obviously, I've had this experience and now it really is. And I suppose some of the ripple effect of that now on my life is that when I go away, for trips and things, I do sometimes have extreme thoughts about what could happen to Charlie, for example, when I'm not with him. I don't like not being with him, but I don't let it stop me either, you know?
Mm.
So the experience of losing her has had such a massive impact. Um, and simple things like she was the person I rang for anything.
Mm.
If I had a good day, I'd ring her. If I was having a bad day, I'd ring her. If I'd messed up, I'd ring her. If I had a question, I'd ring. That was the person. And other people want to be that person for me. I am still struggling to
Mm.
have anyone else have that for me.
Mm.
And part of me is okay with that because she's not here. So um, that it's okay. She's not here. So I work it through. We've got a bench. Dad and Richard made a walk around the farm, and there's a bench for her there, and we've built a cairn. So I'll go up and have a walk up there and sit on the bench and have a chat now. And that's something I do now. It's taken me quite a long time to get to a place where I can do it, but I do
Mm.
that now.
If you are finding strength from Jenny's story and this episode, then press the like button so more people can discover it.
I mean, so the reason I was telling you about the dog is that I had to ring my ex-husband, Charlie's dad, and say, I've bought a puppy and and now I've got to go to Scotland today because Catherine's collapsed. And he knew and loved Catherine, and he was there within half an hour. Well, within an hour, he was there. Took Charlie out for the afternoon to try and give me time to get packed and organise flights and all of that sort of stuff. And then he just scooped up the puppy and took it home. Um, and that was the reminder that actually, when you really need people, they're there and you just have to ask. You can't
Mm.
and do it all on your own. So he was really supportive at that time. And then it's just getting a flight and traveling and not knowing what you're going to, and hoping that while you're up in the air and not being able to communicate with anybody, that miracles happening and that
Mm.
everything's going to be okay when you land. And it wasn't, and then what it's like the waiting game towards the funeral and how we all just, got together and rallied around the children, it was snowy, went on long snowy walks. There was laughter, there was playing, it's a very confusing time because you still have to get up in the morning, you still have to go on with your day. You've got this going on in the back of your mind, but you're trying to keep everybody going. And I think I got into a bit of an organization mode, so I made her, you do a booklet for the funeral, and I rallied round. We had to phone all our friends and talk to our friends. So we had all of those calls to make. And then we rallied round building out this little booklet to take to the funeral. And that really distracted me, I think. We also had Christmas Day. So she passed on the 22nd, and then we all had to get together for Christmas Day, Christmas presents that she'd bought for the kids. And yeah, and it's taken a long time for us to get over that. Christmas Day last year was the first Christmas Day that I think we all said we relaxed and enjoyed ourselves. That was the first year.
Wow, wow. I mean, that's a lot to take in. And for me, I think what I can hear in that, it was almost like the shock,
Oh, we were
the
yeah.
absolute shock of having a conversation, you've got this whole thought process and vision of, I bought this puppy and everything's going to be great. And then all of a sudden, you get a phone call. But through that phone call, you think, as you said, the miracle's going to happen. There's hope.
Yeah.
It's not, this isn't happening. This isn't happening. I'm going to
No.
land and I'm going to see my sister and she's just going to be in hospital. And then she's obviously been taken away from you
Yeah.
quite suddenly. Like, the way that you dealt with the shock was to get into that practical mode, which I think is a way that a lot of people deal with a shock. They
Yeah.
just kind of get into that mode of, right, let's just do, let's just do, let's just do. When do you, when you think on a Sunday, do you ever have those moments where it takes you back and you think back to that time where you had that conversation?
I think about it all the time. I think about Catherine all the time. Um, I think the first couple of years I was very conscious of what would Catherine do type. That was kind of like my motto. I'm less conscious of that now. I think she just more sits in me now. And yeah, where it was so, and I've had all these things like, why was I living in London for 7 years when I could have been here and having all that time with her? You know, because I maybe saw her 3 or 4 times a year. We spoke every week, but I saw her actually 3 or 4 times a year. I am grateful that in the October of 2020, and obviously we were still in lockdown, really, weren't we? We weren't really allowed to do very much travel and things like that. Catherine had just said, "You're coming home. You've just been through COVID. You've been in lockdown. You've not had family. You've not, you're coming home." And so we did. Charlie and I booked a flight and went home for the October holidays. And I'm so grateful that that happened because I had that week when we were here.
Mm.
We spent time together. So we did like walks with the kids and all of that, family meals and things like that. But that had been the first time I'd seen her since, well, I can't remember. It had been Christmas the year
Mm.
before. So I went through guilt of not living here and missing out on all of that time, frustration that I'd missed out on all of that time. There's um, I built my business and a legacy to her, to be honest, so she's the driving force behind the majority of things that I do.
Because obviously this story is not to trigger anyone in any way, shape, or form. I
No.
think what happened next was the pinnacle point of your whole life sort of
Yeah.
changing and your evolvement of your epiphany of really where you then move on next. So just talk me through what happens next, because you didn't just sit and, it sounds like you're a really strong woman. And yes, it's taken you time, like you said, to process everything. And like last year was your first Christmas that you really could relax.
Yeah.
But what happened between last year and obviously that
Yeah.
moment?
I mean, so much has happened since Catherine passed. So I got back to London. I can't remember, maybe just beginning of January, and I had to return to work. I'd obviously been off work, and I went to work, and I looked around, and I didn't want to be there anymore. And it wasn't. It wasn't. Some people had said to me, "It's grief. It's grief. You just need more time off." But it wasn't. It felt like life. I now knew that life was not, tomorrow wasn't promised. It was like I'd now this realization tomorrow isn't promised. But I now use that in a positive way. I don't think, oh my God, tomorrow's not promised and panic about it. Um, I arrived and I looked around and I thought, I don't want to work here. I had actually felt it before this happened, but I ignored it. So it was like, then I started looking back and thinking, I've felt like this for a while. Um, so the first thing I did was resign, and I had 3 months' notice. I mean, if when you think back, my poor parents, this is how brilliant they are. I phoned them up. We've lost Catherine less than 4 weeks before, and I phone them up and say, I'm going to set my own business up, and I've just resigned, and I don't have any savings for rent. So can you help me? And they're like, of course, well, whatever you need, we'll help. So that's what I did. So that was the first big change I did, and I spent the 3 months of garden leave really thinking about what the business would look like, and my, the color scheme is got, it's Catherine's favorite colors in there, and the idea behind Bohemian HR was about a business built on kindness and encouragement and nurturing relationships, and that's very much the way Catherine is. And the do you know the I'm bouncing about a bit, but what was so beautiful was on the day of Catherine's funeral, it was COVID, so you could only have so many people there. It was 20 people, I think, and they all had to be 2 meters apart and all of this
Mm.
daftness, really. When we came out of the church, the streets were lined for a couple of miles with people. So as we drove towards the crematorium, there was just people at either side. And when we got to the crematorium, the same. All the people in Aberdeen had come out, and they were all students. It was just beautiful. It's making me feel emotional thinking about it. It was so lovely. And then I decided, because I love running, and we wanted to raise some money. So I think that was another way I think I was using my love for running as a way of coping. So I thought, I'm going to raise money for. Catherine did a lot of work at the school, so we thought we'd raise money for the school and potentially Archie's, which is a local charity up here that supports children with bereavement. So we thought we'd raise a little bit of money. So I started this. Catherine's favourite song was "Shine On" by Degrees of Motion. Many a time I remember seeing her dancing to that, and we called it "Shine On, Kath," and we said, get out and do 5K, run, walk, whatever, and donate £5. We ended up raising £10,000. Everybody all over the UK was getting out. It was really amazing. So all of January, people were posting pictures of them with Catherine and them out on their walks and all raising money. And the what people were saying about her, she didn't know, the kindness, and how she always had such a lovely word for people and always kind of gave people a nice, gentle kind of tap to acknowledge them and let them know that she saw them. And, you know, she had no idea the impact that she was having on people. And I decided I wanted to build my business with that at its core. I want to have an impact on people's lives, not just filling jobs. And that's what I was getting a bit fed up with, was how much are you going to bill this month? It wasn't about who are you placing, and what difference are you making. It was about how much are you billing. And so I thought, I'm going to set up my own business, and it's going to be about who I'm working with, not how much I'm going to make from them. So really, the ethos of the business has come from Catherine, and that's still the business that I'm running, and it's evolved a huge amount since then. Um, I think there's other changes I made later down the line. I ended up in a relationship at the same time as Catherine passed away, and I'm not in that relationship now. And there was, we had quite a lively first year or two together, um, and I realized that a lot of time, if I was going out socializing, I wasn't enjoying it the same, because there was this emotional impact it was having on me, like the next day and things like that. And over time, I started to realize that the way I was living my life wasn't fitting to how I wanted to live my life, knowing that tomorrow's not promised. So I started to make the shifts and changes. So it started with the business. I started picking up my running more, and then I made the decision that actually alcohol wasn't serving me, and I needed to knock it on the head. So that's what I did, which is now be 3 years next week.
Fantastic. Well done. Because, I know a lot of, there are, people struggle with that. Tell me about your running.
Well, I've ran for about maybe 20 odd years. I used to run but I also used to go to lots of raves and festivals and stuff. So there would be it would be a balance throughout, you know. I and I loved that balance at that time, actually, just to say, you know, I absolutely loved going to a rave, and I absolutely loved going to festivals. And I also really loved doing my running. You know, it was all mixed in. I think when Catherine passed, I very much used my running to help my well-being. So I often struggled to sort of have a cry or whatever. You know, it was hard to let those emotions go. But when I went out for a run on my own, I'd run off out somewhere and then just burst out into tears. It was like I'd no other way of holding it, like it opened up the ability to just let go of the emotions. So that's how I ended up doing a lot more, you know, started being a bit more consistent and running more regularly.
So tell me what you've recently done. Tell everyone what you recently
Yeah,
done, because you're obviously kind of, I don't know. It's amazing what you did, but you've not shared it with us.
I did my first marathon in 2011. It was London Marathon. It was not long after having Charlie. And I thought, I need to lose this baby weight. I think I'll sign up for a marathon. You know, I'm really not realizing actually the extent of what I was doing. And I'm so surprised I made it round now when I look back on the training for that. And then I did London again in 2016. Then I got a place for Berlin Marathon in 2018 through prostate cancer research, because my dad had had prostate cancer. And so I wanted to run and raise money for that charity. So I ended up going to Berlin, and mum and dad came with me. We were in, the reason I'm telling you this is because we're in the charity thing afterwards, and we're all sat with our medals on. And this guy walks in, and he's got the Berlin Marathon medal, and he's got this other medal on. So I was like, what is that? So I went up and I was like, excuse me, what is that medal? Because it was a much bigger medal. And he said, it's the 6-star medal. He said, I completed all 6 world majors. This is my last one. And you get the medal, you get that medal, and you get your Berlin medal and the. I was like, oh my gosh. So you have to do all 6 world majors to get this medal. He was like, yes. So I got back to my table and I said to mum and dad, I'm going to get that medal. um, and little did I'm still going for that medal. And since then, I've done New York Marathon, and I've done Chicago Marathon, and I've got Tokyo Marathon in March of 2026. So I'm on a mission. That'll be my 5th star. Um, and then while I was doing all this road running stuff, I started to see people doing trail running, and I was like, what is that? So I had to explore that and did my first trail marathon. Well, trail, it was 100 kilometres over 2 days, which was Race to the Stones, which is starts in Oxford and goes down to Wiltshire along the Ridgeway. So that was a 2-day event, which I really
Sorry,
loved.
can you just go back to that? So it's
Yeah,
how many?
100 kilometres, so 50 kilometres per day. So you did
50, 50K per day,
50K
and
per
I
day.
can just about do 5. But that is how many marathons?
Well, that's so 42K is a marathon. So it's just, well, it's two and a bit, two, two and a bit marathons. But we camped in the middle. So you run 50 kilometers, camp, and then run another. Some people do it all the way through, 100 kilometers all the way through, which I've not done yet. So I did that and I really loved it. And so I thought, okay, I might do a bit more trail running. So 2023 came, and I signed up to Ultra X, which is in Scotland, 110 kilometres over 2 days. So 63 kilometres one day, 52 kilometres the next day. And when I crossed that finish line, and I was last on across the finish line. The beauty of trail running is it doesn't matter. You could be first, you could be last. Nobody really cares. It's about the experience and the adventure, and which I love. I love that. So I crossed the finish line, and the guy said to me, oh, amazing, you could do the Grand Slam. And I was like, so what's that? And he said, it's England, Wales, and Scotland do all 3 in the year, and you get the Grand Slam. So I was like, okay, no way. This was hard. I'm not doing it. And then 2 days later, I was like, maybe I'll just see. so I booked both those races and ran both those races that year. So I did 310-kilometer multi-day races that year and did the Grand Slam. I was the only female because it was the first year they'd done it. I was the only female that did 110k for each of the, England, Scotland, Wales, and I got the Grand Slam. So that then fueled me even further. And of course, you're meeting people and following what they're doing. You're starting to get introduced to other events that are happening. And I saw this Why We Run event, which I saw other people doing. It was a ballot you'd apply, and it's set in Wales. And you do 5 days back to back.
My name's Lewis Robling. I am the founder of Why We Run. I'm an ultra runner, I'm an ultra running coach, and have been for the last 4 years. What is Why We Run? I think Why We Run mainly is it's a community. It's a space where people run with purpose for themselves and for something bigger than themselves too. A place to connect and meet people that might be strangers to start with that eventually become family. One of the main things, that the differentiating factor, is the fact that it is not a race. It's not a race. It's a collective challenge where there is no competition among individuals. And the one thing that brings people together is the fact that they share a common goal. No one's competing for a title. No one's competing to be the best at anything. They're trying to be the best for themselves.
So we arrived there on the Monday, got to meet everyone else you're running with. So there was 35 runners. And we were there to raise awareness and money for a charity called Big Moose, who are a mental health charity.
So we're a mental health charity, and our goal is to help people to live happier, healthier and kinder lives, and to save lives from suicide. We basically want to reduce any barriers people might face when accessing mental health support. So a lot of people at the moment, there's really long waiting lists or they can't afford it, and we basically want to simplify it. So if you reach out to us, we'll get back to you within 24 hours and you'll be seen by a therapist within a week. So everything that's fundraised at Why We Run is going to go directly towards providing therapy for people that are struggling. It's so special to be here and see people fundraising for Big Moose and to see how passionate they are, because every one of those runners has a story, even if it is just that they want to help people, but a lot of them might have someone they're running for, or they might have been through therapy with Big Moose. I think it's really shown me, like, you can see people who are really in pain, they're really struggling, but they are like persevering and they're so determined. And I think it's such a rare thing to have that. And also to have the community of people that stand up there cheering everyone on, that all come together and wait till the last person comes in and supports each other, is also really rare.
Together, the 35 of us raised over £57,000, which was awesome. And
that's a lot of money for just,
yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. What impact did your sister not being here really, how did that really impact your life?
Yeah, I think I've always had a love for adventure. Over the years, I've done things like, even before we lost Catherine, I've done Kilimanjaro, and I've done, treks in Africa. So I've always been kind of somebody that's wanted to have that type of adventure. I think now I want to do as much as I can of experiences. I think the mixture of giving up drinking, because that had a hold of me of some way. Some people can have a glass of wine or two and then that's it. They can put the bottle in the fridge or whatever. I wasn't that person. Like, if you had a couple of glasses, and I would be like, hey, let's go, sort of thing. Maybe I am that person now. I don't know. I'm not willing to see. I don't want to see. And I think so. Losing Catherine drove me to a place where I could do that and be okay with it. And I think it's that appetite for adventure has been, I don't know, it's increased tenfold, because I don't want to waste a minute. And I think that's what it's done, is it's made me think, I don't want to waste a minute. And sometimes and I've spoken to my brother-in-law about this, is we wish that she was here to see us the way we are now, because he's gone down a similar route, in the sense of we're just out there experiencing everything that is on offer on our doorstep and beyond, because I don't want to waste any time. I think that's it.
Yeah, yeah. It's so impactful how that one thing that happens in our lives can have such an impact on the way we choose to live our lives moving forward. Do you think that if Catherine was still here, that you would have set up your recruitment agency, you'd be continuing to do your runs, you would have stopped drinking?
I really don't know, and it's such a good question. If I'm not sure, I hope so, but I honestly I'm not sure. I didn't. I There was an element of risk with setting up on my own, because there was comfort with working for a decent recruitment company with a base salary and a pension and all of these things. And I think I was scared to set up on my own because I didn't have the money behind me. I felt like it was a massive risk. Where when I'd lost Catherine, nothing seemed like as big a risk anymore. In fact, it was a risk not to do it. So that's, I think, something that's flipped, is that, and it goes down to that, I don't want to waste a minute. So stop being in places that you're not happy. Stop being with people that you're not happy with. It was, it was a real, it's unbelievable. I wish there was another way of discovering this. Do you know what? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like
Yeah.
I said, it's these moments that happen to us in our lives, and they're not necessarily the kindest, nicest
No.
experiences to go through, but it's these experiences that shape
Yeah.
who we choose to be. And I
Yeah.
think that's what I got out of your talk from hearing you speak.
I hope that, and I have shared my story. Like last year, I spoke at an Evolving HR conference, and I did talk about losing Catherine, and I talked about the impact of that. And I do share my story quite regularly. I do some posts about it, because I part of me wants people to listen to it and say, I'm not feeling like I'm living my life the way I want to, and I'm not going to wait until something happens like this. I'm going to make a change now. That's what I hope. Even just one person does is listen and think, "Oh my gosh, I'm sitting on stuff that I really, yeah, I just want to make the change now." And that's what I want. I want people to hear the experience and say, "Yeah, I'm recognizing that some of that is in me, and I want to shift it."
Yeah,
That's what I really want
without having to
without having to
experience.
experience that. Yeah, yeah. And I think that, and the other thing is that Catherine drives me to do these events. So every time I cross a finish line, she's in my head.